Okay, welcome True Hope Family Online. We are in Exodus 5 and 6, and the message of today, the title is, Let My People Go. Let my people go. So, Exodus 4:31 ends with the Israelites believing that God has heard them and praising God and worshiping Him. And so they're ready. They're ready for the Exodus. We're ready to go now. And so we find in Exodus 5 that after they had been praising, Moses and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh, "Thus says the Lord God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." And it is Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh, God of Israel, let my people go. Let my people go. And Pharaoh said, who is the Lord? He's saying, who is this Yahweh, that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know this Yahweh, and nor will I let Israel go. Who is telling me to let these people go? That's what he's saying. Now you have to understand this in context. For the Egyptians, Pharaoh was God. Small g, God, but nonetheless, God. He was king. He was also considered the child of the sun, the one that's in the sky that we rarely see around here, but the child of the sun. And he was also considered a friend of the gods, the Egyptian gods. He actually hung out in their temples, and as the gods were worshipped, Pharaoh was worshipped. This is that Pharaoh. Moses knew this. He grew up in their culture. This is that Pharaoh. In fact, get this, in one of the tombs of these pharaohs, it was inscribed, I am that, about Pharaoh, I am that which was and is and shall be. Does this sound familiar? What does our God say? I'm the one who was and is to come. People, we have a clash of two gods. We have a clash of two kings going on. There's more to this story, but obviously Pharaoh's looking at this as a god. He was and is, and he shall be in his mind. And he's looking at these Hebrews, these Israelites, and they are slaves to him. Your God? Well, he's not very powerful, clearly, because look at the condition you're all in. This God is telling me to let you go? So they said, the God of the Hebrews, and he's like, yeah, I get that, has met with us. Please let us go 3 days' journey into the desert and sacrifice to the Lord our God, to Yahweh our God, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with a sword. God's giving Moses this to say, even though, of course, it wasn't about 3 days in the desert, but it was an easy entrance for Pharaoh to agree to this departure. So God gave him every chance not to harden his heart. Then the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, said to them, Moses and Aaron, why do you take the people from their work? Get back to your labor. No, is what he's basically saying. No, I'm not letting these people go. And Pharaoh said, look, the people of the land are many now. They're worried. If there's an uprising, there's too many of them. So we're not going to give them a taste of freedom. We are not encouraging some kind of uprising. And he's saying, I'm not going to let my people go. What do you mean? God, the God of the Hebrews people, they're my people. And I'm not letting them go. In fact, they're my labor force. So, no. So the same Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters, which were Egyptians, and their officers, which were Hebrews, saying, you shall no longer give the people straw to make bricks as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves, and you shall lay on them the same quota of bricks which they made before. So God heard them, they worshipped, and now it's going to get way more difficult for them. The way they made the bricks in Egypt is they took the mud from the Nile and they added straw, and then they made it they put it together and they made it in shapes and they let it dry in the sun, and that became bricks. And everything in Egypt during that time was made out of these bricks except for the temples. And the pyramids had already been built. So guess what? Clearly, if you have time to go for 3 days to worship God, then you have time on your hands. And so I'm no longer going to give you straw. You're going to get your own straw. But you still have to make the exact amount of bricks. Now, how they harvested in Egypt is they didn't harvest at the bottom of the corn or the wheat. They harvested the heads. And so the straw and the stalks would all be there. So at first it might not have been super difficult for them because there would be fields nearby that they could gather from. But as time went on, very soon they would have to go further and further afield. And of course, it gets harder and harder. Now, the other interesting thing that I learned as I was preparing for this is I'd always kind of thought they were all helping with the brick making. But they still lived in Goshen and they still had their livestock. So they rotated a workforce in and out. So just interesting how that went. So you're clearly lazy. You clearly have time. So focus and get the same done. And the taskmaster of the people, this is now verse 10, and their officers went out and spoke to the people, saying, "Thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go get yourself straw where you can find it, yet none of your work will be reduced." Uh-oh. We've got problems. Now you might think, well, who are they taking that straw from? But remember back in Joseph's time, Joseph took their money for the food, and then he took some other things for their food, and then they gave him their land. So most of the agricultural land actually belonged to the government. So the people were scattered abroad throughout all the land of Egypt to gather stubble instead of straw, and the taskmasters forced them to hurry, saying, "Fulfill your work, your daily quota," and as if there was straw. And also the officers of the children of Israel, so these are Hebrews, in charge of the workers, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten and were asked, "Why have you not fulfilled your task in making brick both yesterday and today as before? Why didn't you fulfill your quota?" So get the straw, same quota, work harder and get beaten. Thanks, Moses, for coming back. This is really, really good for us so far. But that's sometimes how it goes, right? God has got our attention. He has a plan for us, but things start getting tougher. And we're going, this is not what God has for me. Because we tend to interpret difficulty as this is not from God. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. That's the hard part. But in this case, they were sure because God had said. He didn't say, it's kind of like what we looked at a Thursday when Jesus and his disciples went in the boat to cross over to the other side. He said, let's get in the boat and cross to the other side. Then suddenly a storm comes up. They're frightened and they think they're going to drown. And they're like, don't you care, we're going to drown. But Jesus didn't say, let's get in the boat. There's going to be a furious squall. It's going to be hairy, but we're going to get to the other side. He didn't let them know what was ahead. He also didn't say, let's get in the boat. We're going to go to the middle of the lake. A really bad storm comes up and we're all going to drown. Right? He didn't say that. He said, let's get in the boat, go to the other side. But we tend to not get informed about what's in between. And that's when we freak out. Like, I must have heard wrong. This can't possibly be from God, because if it's from God, it's like I'm happy and healthy. I look fabulous and all is well with the world all the time. Of course, isn't that how life with God goes? No, that would be a lie. But we freak out, and sometimes God asks us to do a new hard thing, and all sorts of hell breaks loose. And we're like, nope. And really, I've been there. Like I was talking to people earlier. It's like during Harrison's journey, going still off the deep end, he was probably 17, and it took till 22 before he turned around. He had just threatened that I would never see him again. He knew that that was my greatest trigger, and left. And it was a big argument as part of that. So you already feel terrible. And I remember driving or walking up and down the driveway. It's drizzling. I'm crying. I'm calling out to God out loud because I'm by myself on my driveway, right? And just marching up and down like for a good long time. I was pretty wet by the time it was done. And just like, I can't do this anymore. I don't know how to follow you in this. I can't take anymore. This is too much. You know, you can do this. Why are you allowing it? I was heartbroken. It was so hard. And in the process of pouring my heart out, eventually you reach the end of your emotion, which is a good thing. And I felt like God said to me, I wasn't audible voice, but it was in my heart and in my head, I have already answered your prayer. It's already done. You're just living toward the answer. Other people had said to me, it's going to be about when he's in his early to mid-20s. And I had declared, no, I am not waiting another 8 years. I'm not going through this for 8 more years. Well, I went through it for 5 more years, but I mean, it's like, no, this can't possibly be right. And part of that then was every time I stepped into anything that God called me to do, the onslaught was crazy. Satan pounced, and it was always Harrison's life that was being attacked, and I definitely shrank back. I took steps and went, no, I'm not coming. I'm not going. This is too hard. And it was a real battle. And the problem in that battle is I was taking my eyes off of God, not constantly, but in the end I had bought a lie that in my Egypt, Satan was more powerful than God. I didn't believe that in my head, but I was living as if that was the truth. Because I was trying to avoid Harrison getting tortured or me getting tortured. And so if I shrink back, if I just, not do what I'm told to do, maybe it'll go away. It sort of does, but then there's another thing. Now, Satan lets you be, and then God's sitting on you like, I told you to go. So the trouble is the trouble, and God is going to use it. But that's where they were. That's where they were. And then the officers of the children of Israel came and cried out to Pharaoh. Now, who did they go to for help? Did they go to God? Who can rescue them? No, they went to Pharaoh. And don't we do the same thing? We look for our own solutions, our own best thinking. We call a friend. We figure it out. How many of us need to figure it out? Cried out to Pharaoh, saying, why are you dealing thus with your servants? They're confused. Yeah, like God's going to rescue us. What? What is happening? And they turned to Pharaoh for help. Oftentimes in our own Egypt, we find ourselves in Egypt, and we actually are familiar with the chains we're in. And it's a lot easier to stay in the chains we're familiar with than to venture out into this road where all of a sudden new, harder things may happen. And I don't know about it. And even though I hate Egypt, this is just better than whatever it is that this pain is as I'm moving forward. And so where are you? Where's Egypt for you? What's going on? So they're lamenting to Pharaoh, look, you want us to do this. And he says, and indeed your servants are beaten, but the fault is your own people. Now Pharaoh thinks he's God. And they're saying, basically, it's your fault. I think it's a little dangerous game to play, don't you think? So, but he just wouldn't hear. And so now in verse 19, and the officers of the children of Israel saw that they were in trouble. Because Pharaoh said, you're idle, you're going to work harder. You shall not, because he said, you shall not reduce any bricks from the daily quota. Big trouble. Do more, work harder. Then as they came out from Pharaoh, they're confused but also angry, they met Moses and Aaron, who stood there to meet them. It's kind of funny. What were they thinking? Like, how did Moses and Aaron think this was going to go? Or what were they hoping to accomplish, right? These people are probably fuming. And they said to them, let the Lord look. So the taskmasters the officers who were really upset said to Moses and Aaron, let the Lord look on you and judge, because you have made us abhorrent in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to kill us. It's your fault. It's Pharaoh's fault. It's, Moses and Aaron's fault. And they're like, we'd rather be slaves in Egypt. Just easier. Just I wish you hadn't showed up. The truth is, what they're facing is, okay, we are God's people. And Moses is thinking, maybe, or we might be thinking in this instance, okay, Israel belongs to God. I've obeyed God. Moses has obeyed God. And why is this happening? How often are we ourselves in that place? I have done what I was told to do. I belong to you. You could fix this in an instant. Why aren't you? So Moses returned to the Lord and said, Lord, why have you brought trouble on this people? Why is it that you have sent me? Why am I here? Look, it's all bad and everybody hates me. For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, God, you send me your name, he has done evil to this people. Neither have you delivered your people at all. My gosh, that's a pretty stern accusation. God, why? Has God ever answered you when you've asked a why question? So, going into chapter 6, no explanation, no defense, no justification. God does not say, oh, I'm sorry, you're hurting. I didn't mean to do that to you. Let me explain. Nope. But God knows that Israel isn't ready to go yet, and Moses isn't ready. There's work to be done. And preparation's usually of the painful variety. Have you noticed? It's just a bummer that we can't sit by the pool, sip our coffee and tea, and grow. It doesn't work that way. It's always hardship. It's always difficult. And so the Lord instead said to Moses, now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh. Hey, we're not off track. We are not in the wrong book. This is not a different play. We are exactly where we're going to go. Now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand he will let them go. And with a strong hand he will drive them out of the land. You'll see. God has this. He will do it. And now God is having a little chatteroo with Moses. And God spoke to Moses and said to him, I am the Lord. I am Yahweh. I appear to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as God Almighty, El Shaddai. But by my name, Yahweh, I was not known to them. Okay. The Bible isn't lying. But here's a fact. The word Yahweh, or the name Yahweh, appears 160 times in Genesis. So they did, in fact, know that name. But what God is saying is they didn't know me, Yahweh. They might have known of him as Yahweh, but they didn't experience the fulfillment of the promise. They didn't have the deep, close personal relationships that Moses is going to have with God. So, I have also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage, in which they were strangers. And I have also learned of the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians keep in bondage. And I have remembered my covenant. I established my covenant. I've heard the groaning. I remember my covenant. Therefore say to the children of Israel, I am the Lord. I'm Yahweh. So he says to Moses, I'm Yahweh. Explains the situation. He goes, now tell him, I am Yahweh. I will bring you out. There's 7 times he says, I will. I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. It's a build slide. It's a build slide. The next one. I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. I will rescue you from their bondage. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. I will take you as my people, and I will be your God. I will bring you out. I will redeem you. I will rescue you. You will be my people. I will be your God. Then you shall know that I am the Lord, your God. I am Yahweh, who brings you out from under the burdens of the Egyptian. And I will bring you into the land which I swore to give Abram, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you as a heritage. I am the Lord. I am Yahweh. So what is this based on? Yahweh. And the I will in all those situations is I have done it. It isn't I'm planning. It is done. So he's basically saying, I've brought you out. I have rescued you. I've redeemed you. I've taken you as my people. I am your God. I have brought you into the land, and I have given it to you as a heritage. It's completed. So just like when God said, I've already answered your prayer, you're just living toward the answer. He's saying the same thing to Moses. It's done. And you're on the journey to the completion. This is so big for us as people of God, because we are in darkness and we don't know what's going on, and we're freaking out, and we like to understand. And God doesn't need us to understand. It's unfortunate for us, but God really doesn't need us to understand. He just needs us to do as he says. And as we keep walking, even though it's maybe like a blind person because you have no idea where you're going, God already has done it, and all we're doing is walking into what he's promised. So Moses spoke thus to the children of Israel. Pain, suffering, hardship is not a sign of God being off track or being weak or powerless. So Moses spoke thus to the children of Israel, but they did not heed Moses because of anguish of spirit and cruel bondage. And here we are. This is important for us as people. We're a church that deals with recovery, right? From addiction and from mental health challenges, but also trauma, which is underlying a lot of that stuff. And when you're in trauma, all this is blah, 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 because you cannot absorb it. Life is just too hard. They could not listen to Moses because of their anguish of spirit and cruel bondage. They were worn out. They were incapable of believing, of having hope. Have we been there, people? I've been there. But that's why being a church is so important. This is why we do not give up meeting together. Because when I couldn't go on, I had people standing with me. And they held me up. They were praying for me during that journey. And now in turn, God sent me to go do the same. And so if you are not in anguish or cruel bondage, yay! But don't do what so many people do, bail. Oh, I don't need this anymore. No, join forces and stand with the people who now can't go on. And it'll be your turn again, don't worry. But we can't hear, and oftentimes we can't believe when it's too hard. And the Lord, Yahweh, spoke to Moses, saying, Go in and tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the children of Israel go out of this land. Let my people go. And Moses spoke before the Lord, saying, The children of Israel haven't listened to me. Then how shall Pharaoh heed me? For I am of uncircumcised lips. Moses says, Who am I that they would listen to me? It's the wrong question, right? God is sending him. Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron and gave them a command for the children of Israel, for Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. Bring them out. You notice God's like saying the same thing over and over again. Go, tell him to let my people go. Go, tell him to let my people go. Go, bring them out. God's not tone deaf. We are tone deaf. And then there's a little section on the genealogy. So basically, Jacob had 12 sons. The first is Reuben, Simeon, and Levi. Levi had 3 sons. The middle one is Kohath. Kohath had 4 sons. The first one is Amram, and Amram is the father of Aaron and Miriam and Moses. And then it says, then it just says, these are the same Aaron and Moses to whom the Lord said, bring out the children of Israel from the land of Egypt according to their armies. These are the ones who spoke to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to bring out the children of Israel from Egypt. These are the same Moses and Aaron. I don't know how many Moseses and Aarons there were, but apparently God wants us to be really clear. These are the Moses and Aaron that I'm talking about. And it came to pass on the day that the Lord Yahweh spoke to Moses in the land of Egypt, that the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, I am the Lord, I am Yahweh. He keeps saying the same thing. I am Yahweh. I am Yahweh. Speak to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, all that I say to you. Go. I don't care if your lips are uncircumcised. Go. I don't care if you're a nobody. You go because I'm telling you to go. And you know what what's the next word in the thing? But. But Moses said before the Lord, behold, I am of uncircumcised lips. I can't. So how many times when God is inviting us to something, or we know our assignments, and our life doesn't look the way we think it should look to do what God calls us to do? Anybody with me? Anybody ever have that? And how many times do we say, I can't. I can't take it anymore. I can't do this anymore. Until XYZ happens, I can't go. Until I feel better, until my pain is less, until my life circumstances change, until what's yours that you fill in blank? Until God does this for me, I can't go and answer him. Here's the challenge with that. God isn't mad at you for asking that question. But he cannot free you from what he wants to free you from. He cannot set you free. He cannot take you out of bondage. He cannot relieve your pain or heal you or give you what you want until you do what you're told. And never the other way around. God is never going to be, let me give you your allowance first. Let me give you your paycheck first, and then you go do the work. I mean, that's cute. That's not how it works. God said, we go, and then he may or may not give you what you're asking for. It's irrelevant because God is God, because in the middle of that, I can't take it anymore. I can't do it anymore. I can't go. I can't speak. I can't whatever. God is still God. He's still Yahweh. I have a news flash for you. If God is serious about using you, whenever you're about to be used, right before and right after, it's going to be really unpleasant. You can take that to the bank. Some of us don't sleep the night before Sunday, do we? It's always a short night. It's always interrupted. There's always something going on. And guess what? I was tempted back in the day to say, I don't know if I can do it. But I learned pretty fast, actually, that this is reality. Get over it. Get used to it. This is what God does. Because here's the deal. He doesn't need me to be strong or capable. He doesn't need me to understand. He doesn't need me to have it all together. Who has that need, actually? I do. I like to feel strong and capable and not tired and whatever. And God probably chuckles. Why might he use us when we are at our least? Well, who is it showing up then? I've got 0 people. I'm on fumes, right? But God's like, finally, you're enough out of the way that I can do something amazing, because it's not you that I'm trying to get the glory. I will use whom I will use to bring myself glory, says God. So if you're struggling, count yourself blessed. If you're called and you're struggling, you're right where God wants you. And as you obey, it gets easier. Here's a couple of things that could happen. One is whatever you're going through stays the same, but you don't care anymore. You just don't even pay attention to it because it's unimportant. Or God may heal it. Or maybe it feels just different because you're no longer thinking about it. Here's another thing I can promise you. It's never going to go away if you wait for that to happen first. So, while I was struggling, right? Harrison was still going in that wrong direction. And I was shrinking back. And there's a verse in the Bible that says that God does not like those who shrink back. I'm aware of that verse. So I was wrestling because Satan felt really powerful, and it felt like every time I took a step forward, all hell broke loose, for real. And so I kept trying to do that. I was focusing on the enemy. I was focusing on my Egypt. When I stopped focusing on my Egypt and said, I don't really care what happens, but I got to go. Interestingly enough, I don't notice it anymore. I'm sure it's still there, but I'm not paying attention because it is not where my focus is. So here's my question for us. We're obviously not in physical Egypt, and we're also not thousands of years ago making bricks and stuck in those situations, but we have our own challenges. So what is your Egypt? What is your Egypt that you've gotten so used to that it's easier to stay there than to do the hard work of obeying the Lord in the midst of your circumstances? Where are you stuck? What are you holding out for that you're waiting for, thinking that God is going to explain some things to you or lift some things from you, when he's just saying, go. Just go. I'm sending you. I, the Lord, am going with you. I'm all powerful. You don't need more than that. Where's your focus? Is it on the enemy? Is it on your circumstances? Is it on yourself? Or is it on Yahweh, who can do all things? And who do you choose to believe in the end? When I shrank back, I really was believing Satan. I was believing that he was too scary for me to deal with, and he was so powerful, and I was afraid of what was going to happen. He's not my Lord. Jesus is my Lord. And Jesus already conquered him. It's a lie that I was believing, and that lie kept me in Egypt for a while. So our choice is to keep the faith, to follow Jesus, and to believe. Again, when you're in trauma, make sure you don't do that alone. Make sure you get some people standing next to you, praying for you and with you daily, because it is a fight. If you don't yet know Jesus, this is the time to say yes to him, because all the power and all the solution and all the promises to take you out of Egypt and to the promised land, to be his people, and that he'll be your God, is only available through Jesus. And that means just admitting that you are not God and you cannot do it, that you've sinned and you need forgiveness, and to ask Jesus to come into your heart and life. A simple prayer saying, Jesus, I know you're God and I'm not. Please forgive me and come into my life. And the big thing is for us to remember Romans 8:28. If you haven't memorized it, memorize it this week. For God works in all things for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Now, I want to tell you what the verse doesn't say. For God makes all things feel good. It doesn't say that. That's what people think. Good means I like it. That's not what it says. It says God works in all things for the good of those who love him. And if you are not looking like Jesus a whole heck of a lot, what's really good for you is to start looking like Jesus more. And when God starts chiseling that old self off, you hurt. Yeah. So then we say, well, Romans 8:28 is a lie. It isn't good. I'm in pain. My best friend left me. Whatever. My finances take a nosedive. My health is taking a nosedive. So this is not true. No. It says that God works in all things for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And so we just have to decide. Is Pharaoh Lord, which means Satan, or is Yahweh Lord? And do you trust Yahweh enough to take you out of Egypt? And it's not going to be fun. To go to the promised land, which is amazing. That's our journey. That's our call. That's the thing that God is inviting us to. So I want you to ponder that while we sing this next song. It's Rend Collective. His name is Power. So if you're at home, check that out.